Hi, this is Kaery with Kaery Concealed in the Active Self-Protection Extra channel, and I have a special guest here. I know that I need to introduce her to you, but let's ask our special guest the Instructor Insider questions when we come back.
MagTech is the only pistol or rifle ammo I use on the range, and I recommend them highly. I've seen their manufacturing and quality control firsthand, and it's incredible, which is why it always performs reliably and accurately. They are operating at max capacity and cranking out rounds for you to keep your skills sharp. Pick up some MagTech at your local ammo retailer.
Tell the people a bit about yourself and where they can find you. But everyone better already know who you are because this is going to be on Extra Channel, right?
Right.
But just in case, this is Miss Steph. If you don't know, she's my boss. She's the CEO of Active Self-Protection. And where can you find her? Right here.
Right. No, I am lucky enough to work with everybody on this team. I consider myself blessed with that every day. They're some of the most amazing people that Kaery brings and finds and interviews, and I am super grateful for that.
Oh, I'm grateful to have you on this. People have asked, why have you been asking all the other Instructor Insider questions, other instructors? What about the ones you work with? That's like, good point.
Good point.
All right, so for how long have you been an instructor?
I have been an instructor since, I want to say 2016. I'd probably have to verify that. I started seriously carrying a gun and seriously pursuing self-defense in 2014.
Okay.
Actually, my instructor course with the NRA was one of the first courses I actually took.
Yeah.
And my hope with that was not to instruct, although John was strongly encouraging me at that point that I should be considering it, but I thought that the instructor level course might be a more in-depth
and have more information.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. So I didn't really intend on instructing when taking it, but yeah, that's when I started.
Great. You remind me again what year? 2014 you said?
2014, yeah.
That's about the same.
Yeah.
All right, so what was your first gun and what is your current favorite gun?
Oh, my first gun. Actually, I have a real
not necessarily first handgun. It could be any gun. Yeah.
Well, my first gun that I got was a handgun. So I got it for self-protection. It was going to be my concealed carry gun. And so I have a real soft spot for this gun. There was a lot of things that were not right about it. It was a Walther P22.
Okay.
And it had a lot of really good things going for it. At that time, it was before anything happened with 22 ammo being difficult to find. So we could shoot buckets of ammo.
Yes.
And I remember being so proud and taking that gun home and reading the owner's manual from cover to cover.
Which is a good thing for everyone to do, by the way.
Yes. No one told me, and taking it apart and doing all the things that it said. No one told me that was the wrong gun. I did come to some different conclusions later about what I wanted to carry, but I loved that gun and it was so fun to shoot. I took real ownership of shooting and owning a gun at that point because it felt easy and simple and not overwhelming or overpowering. So
and you did it all yourself.
Yes.
That's what's so awesome. I think that's super cool. And for some people, that is a great first gun for them, and a great forever gun for some. I mean, I have some students that have severe grip issues and are older.
And it was good for that. And if it's I'd really rather have something that they can carry and that they can shoot and they can shoot a lot.
And if they want to practice with.
Than something else that someone told them they should have.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, currently, what are you enjoying most about teaching? Like, what classes or topics are you enjoying most?
What I am enjoying most about teaching, we went through a class together recently through the Force Science Institute called Methods of Instruction. And it was a really eye-opening class to me because it really spoke to how we transfer information and skills and knowledge. And it isn't the easiest way to do it by far. It is so much easier to stand up at the front of the class and tell everyone what I know. This is what I know, and now you know it.
That's our whole thought process, right?
And it is easy, and that's what's modeled to us, I think, a lot as children.
The school model.
And yes. And so to have that challenged and backed up by science, and to take that with some, and I say this in the most loving way, the biggest nerds I know, where we sat and just went, what in the world? And really wrestled with this that was really interesting to me, and it's really challenged me to look outside of the defensive space for ways to do things, which we should all be doing because life is life, but looking to education, looking to training, looking to communication, looking to all of these different ways to craft and deliver a message and change and influence behavior.
Yeah, and there's such a difference. I think what we forget in this community of instructors in the firearm space and self-protection space is I think we forget that there's a difference between a transfer of knowledge and a transfer of skills.
Right.
And that's a very different thing.
Right.
But we teach them both the same often.
Yes.
And yeah, that's what the Force Science was all about. It's
And
been
there's
awesome.
a whole discipline on like sports psychology and
skills.
motor learning and
motor
teaching
learning,
those skills and all of these things that, I think we've been very locked into. This is how you teach firearms. And in some ways I get it. It's a complicated thing to teach from a safety and logistical perspective. But if you can get beyond that and recontextualize something from, boy, when you teach soccer or baseball or something this way, some other motor learning task, what can we do to transfer those best practices into our world? You can really make rapid changes quickly. And you and I have spent a lot of time going, I think we're spending hours of our very limited time teaching things in a very inefficient way or teaching things we don't need to teach at all.
That's right.
So that's what I'm currently nerding out on.
Yeah.
How can we restructure, change? And we should always be doing that. We always try to do that, but it's been a pretty radical shift the last year.
And I'm right there with you. I've enjoyed all the conversations we've had, figuring it out together.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to be able to wrestle through those things with you and not have to try to figure it out myself. And it's just so great to have the extra input. So I appreciate that. All right. Sorry, we have guests beside us. We're very excited about something.
Yeah.
All right, so what is one helpful hint that you can share with instructors just starting out?
I think what I would like to tell myself if I was starting out again was
that's a good way to approach the question.
I realized I had a very skewed perspective of where I should be as an instructor from the beginning. So as a first, second, and third year instructor, I felt that I should know everything about everything.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're 10 years down the road now, and I'm comfortable saying, I don't know a lot about long guns, for example. I care very little about mechanics inside my pistol. I am not the person to talk to about that. I can get through a class, and I can help you get through a class, but I care not about any of that. And realizing that this is a huge space with a lot of topics to specialize in.
Yeah.
And not to either limit or beat myself up because I felt like, boy, as a firearms instructor, I better know every single part inside my gun and how they function together.
How it works and the history of it.
And I never want to make a mistake, and I have to know all the history, and I wish I would have given myself a lot more grace to, rather than pretend to be an instructor that knew it all and never get caught for, never get found out that I didn't. I wish I would have just embraced that and asked more questions and been more authentically myself and had a better perspective. You and I have talked about that. I took my first Mag 40 class with Masad Ayub, which was one of the first real classes I took.
That's unbelievable. That's what you started
I know.
with.
So I'm super spoiled. I have a really different perspective anyway, just because I haven't had a bad experience, really. But you should get the qualification at the end, the top score, the perfect score is 300. And so as one of my first courses, my score was 286 or 284, right in there, right? I would be, and yet I was devastated. For one thing, the pattern was wider than I wanted. It scored better than it looked. And so I kept the target, but I hid it in my closet, basically. And I got it out, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I looked at it, and I just laughed because I'm like, I should have been, and today I am proud of and thrilled with that target. And it frustrates me that I had such a skewed perspective, and it reminded me to let my students know that, okay, this is, one day you're gonna look back at that and realize where you are now. You haven't been doing this for 10 years, and you will gather a lot of skill and mindset and all of these things that'll help you do things differently, but embrace where you are now and don't beat yourself up for where you're going to be in a year.
Well said. Well said. It makes me think, gosh, I hope I know what we're going to talk about over dinner, if you'll let me be willing to. But am I telling my students how amazing a certain thing is? Like, so that they know, hey, if you're doing this, you are absolutely meeting, if not exceeding the standard. To my beginners, so they know, because it's true.
And how do you convince them you're not just blowing sunshine?
Yeah.
That you're absolute, because we are. When I tell
it's true. We're not lying.
I'm thrilled. People can't do what you're doing.
Yes.
We just had a class at a Girl in the Gun conference, and we had to stop them and say, you guys don't even know what you're accomplishing. To have most of the class hit steel at 40 yards in the rain, first classes of the day.
And all but one gun was iron sights.
And so, but they didn't have the perspective
Right.
to understand how good that was. And so I'm like, we're not just being cheerleaders here. That's a big deal. And 5 years ago, I would have been thrilled with that.
Yes,
And I don't think we would have got those results because we did the drill a little differently, which is another point to constantly changing, evolving, and
Yes.
experiencing and growing. So maybe that's another thing I'd tell younger instructors. Constantly
Be free
change.
to grow. Yes, yes. All right, what's the best piece of firearm or protection-related advice you've ever received?
Oh, that I have ever received?
Yep.
Boy, that's a tough one. I think it has really hit me. It wasn't advice to me, but it was something somebody said about a choice they made for themselves. I was in a group of a very serious firearms enthusiasts. These people were constant students and they were leaders in the industry. And the question was put in the statement made that if you had to choose between leaving the house without a gun or leaving the house without pepper spray, what are you going to choose?
Wow.
And all of the people that I looked up to and respected made the choice that pepper spray if they were forced to choose. And that shocked me as a younger instructor.
Sure.
When I took the time to process it, it made all the sense in the world to me. They're much more likely needed to use pepper spray.
Yes, good
that
Lord.
solves a whole lot of problems that a gun doesn't solve. Modern pepper spray is incredibly effective if you get a good brand. And it really got me thinking that sometimes maybe we're not thinking about things in a solution-oriented way and what serves us best.
Yes.
We're thinking about them in, I don't know, maybe an identity way or a political way, or I am a gun carrier, therefore I carry guns and I solve problems with guns. I don't know what the difference was, but it turned a switch
understand that.
to me.
Absolutely.
It turned a switch. And then, can I have one more?
Absolutely.
I had
This is your business and your company.
I remember reading as a very early on in my journey a lot of Greg Ellifritz's work and really being surprised at some of the I don't want to say science, but evidence that conflicted with the way I thought things went.
Yep.
And the idea of, hey, you know, maybe what we're being taught and told isn't how we actually best and effectively defend our lives or our children's lives.
Yeah.
And hey, here's some actually evidence-based ideas that might involve you telling your children not to go with the standard lockdown in their classroom, but if they have a chance to dart out the door, statistically that may be the better choice. And that just got me flicking switches and thinking that, because I'm a bit of a rule follower by birth. I'm getting better at that, but by birth, that is where I'm going to be.
We also need rule followers to keep
we
everyone else out of jail.
We do, right. But the idea, so it just really started flicking switches in my brain that maybe I needed to have a reason for why I was doing things and not just because I was told to do them by someone that should know better than I do, because they might not.
Gotcha. The OC spray thing, can I visit that for a second? So Mr. John just taught his mistakes that'll land you in jail as a gun owner or concealed carry or whatever. But I don't mean whatever. Anyway, it was good. It was a great summer. First time I got to see him do it, and it was good. And the people were just freaked out about it. They loved it. They thought it was great. A gentleman asked a question. He said, well, if OC spray is so helpful, why are there so few people that are... You know, he said you can't even find an OC spray instructor course, and he's not wrong. I mean, Mr. Chuck has his that he teaches, which is awesome.
Some of the brands have theirs.
Yeah, which, let's be honest, a lot of those are sales training for how to train, how to sell their products.
Right.
At least the civilian side is.
Right.
But and then as I was sitting there thinking, realizing, I was like, that's a great question. And then I thought, why aren't we as firearm instructors integrating OC into every aspect of what we're doing?
Right.
Because that's really, it doesn't have to be separate.
Right.
It can be together, and then it's more contextual.
Right, and I think it just goes back to maybe some of the idea of identity, that I'm a firearms instructor and my time is very limited. And if you could change that maybe identity to I'm a self-defense instructor, and maybe cut out some of the things that we were talking about that we don't have to spend near as much time teaching aiming and sighting as we think we do, which is something we're experimenting with.
And that's based on science stuff. So it's not,
and whatever that is for you. Maybe you're spending a lot of time teaching one-handed shooting and you think maybe something along the lines of OC would be more valuable. So making your, I don't know, would the word be make it more holistic?
Yes, I like that.
Course,
but it's true, because that's really more what life is about.
And if we're trying to serve our students, I think we're really missing the boat if we're not giving them some of the best options.
Yes.
And in the expert witness work that we do together, there have been, of course, you can't know how, if we changed a few facts, how the scenario
I would agree.
have gone.
I would agree.
However, we have a pretty good handle on a couple of these cases at this point, after spending weeks and months and hours
many
and hours
years
and hours
too,
with them.
and countless cases too.
Yeah, and knowing that there are an awful lot of times that if they had used pepper spray either earlier
Sooner?
or instead of, in some cases, the firearm. Now, the firearms were fully justified.
Yes.
I just have a feeling that the
In some
OC
of the
spray
cases.
may have,
Oh yeah,
in
and
some
those
that we
ones, I
took-
see what you're saying. Yeah. And the ones where it was justified, OCC may have
changed it, even not having to use the firearm, and some of them have faced significant consequences. And OC just has so much less as a consequence, even if you're wrong. So I think that's something if you're an instructor watching, and we're instructors, I think we really can't look past that and shortchange our students.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be taught separately. You don't have to come up with a separate curriculum for it or whatever.
Yep.
It can be integrated into what we're already doing.
Yeah.
There's so many misconceptions too. I've spent a lot of time thinking about why is OC not something that is people's often first go-to.
Yeah.
I tell my students, listen, before you put your gun on, make sure you have your FLP and make sure you got your palm OC in your pocket. Then put your gun on for the day.
Right.
But you got to have both of those before you do that.
Yep.
But I think it's because there's so many misconceptions about OC and so much confusion.
I do, and it wasn't always a good product.
That's
As
so
you
true.
and I know, going
So
through courses and in all of your research, it wasn't always good.
No.
That's not. Now that can still be the case.
Depends on what you pick, which one you pick. Good point.
Right, but right now we do have some really good options. And then just like we saw as we were talking with people here at the NRA annual meetings, there's that misconception that somehow an OC should be a firearm replacement.
Yeah.
And that it's sort of bringing a knife to a gunfight kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that isn't its place or use case at all.
Yeah.
It's a totally separate and far bigger use case than a firearm.
Yeah.
So I think
true.
it's an educational piece, both as far as what the product can do and when it can be useful.
Yeah. And it's like a spectrum almost.
Right.
All right, if you could train with anyone, living or dead, who would it be? And then one question after this.
All right, so I did train with this person already, but I trained with Dr. William April, who, as we know, passed away. It's been several years now. I don't know what the exact number is. I did have the chance to travel and take his Unthinkable lecture, which was it's too late for you to take it. I'm sorry, but it was a good lecture. He worked in criminal psychology and had a great deal of experience there, and the course was really focused on that criminal psychological, psychosocial element and how they think. And I drove 8 hours for that course. And
it's a one-day course.
This one was a one-day course.
9 hours, but 1 day,
He did have a couple, and it was kind of that drinking from a fire hose situation. So I would love the opportunity to take that again with, several years greater understanding and to pick his brain. And unfortunately, that is lost. So if I could give you guys or whoever's watching any advice, if you're looking at a trainer that you want to train with, life can be very, very short. We should have had Dr. April for
and he was
for
young.
a lot
Nobody
longer.
expected that.
Yeah, we should have had him for a lot longer. And there are a lot of trainers right now who are getting ready to retire. Some of the
a lot
greats,
that people don't even know of.
Right, and
they know of the people, they just don't know they're getting ready to retire.
Right, and you never know when you're going to get that chance for the last class.
Yeah.
So
true.
I'm grateful that and I know I've done some classes with you where we've prioritized classes that maybe, we weren't planning on taking for whatever budget, time, whatever restrictions, but we did because of that. And I guess that's another lesson I have Dr. April to thank for, that you never know when might be your last chance to learn something, to ask something from someone that has been doing this for 3 times as long as you have been. Even if you might do it differently or teach it differently, it can still give
information can be invaluable. Right. Yeah, and directly from the source too.
Right.
All right, last question. If you could AI or RSO for anyone living or dead, who would it be?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. Okay, I know what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'm going to say my friend Kaery Dudenhofer. AI and RSO.
We get to teach together all the time,
right?
Which is the best.
But when you find, so one thing that we talk about in our instructor certification is that you should be the type of instructor that you are. Be authentically yourself. Don't try to emulate another instructor. And you are not going to attract or be appreciated by every student.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And we are a very particular type of instructor. We're very, very similar. We're pretty deep. We're pretty nerdy. We like to know the whys, deeply why. And we spend a lot of time chasing down rabbit holes that people may or may not care about. If you've seen any of the stuff we've done on Active Self-Protection Extra, you're with us. However, the people that we connect with, and the joy it brings me to explore the things that I want to explore and see that develop in places. And you're an innovator and a changer and a disruptor. Yeah.
Together we do this amazing stuff.
Right. so that's what I would do, and I'll get to do that.
Sweet.
I'll get to do that again. So.
Yeah. Like I say, I never want to teach without you. So it's a sad day if I ever have to. So. All right. Well, thank you for your time, Miss Steph.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you next week.